Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to kick off another week of Stay Curious. Monday, January 22nd, 2024. And we are grateful that you're spending your time with us today. We've got to talk about a little bit of planetary history. And Uranus is in our skies and in our background here. The planet everybody likes to make fun of because of its name, but Uranus or Uranus is a very important planet, seventh planet from the sun, the coldest planet, even colder than Neptune. It's over 1 billion miles further away, and it is up in the sky tonight over your head. You're probably not going to see it, particularly if it's cold outside, Dave Stange, but up there in Michigan. But we're going to tell you about this marvelous telescope, or this marvelous planet discovered with the aid of a telescope. But I got a couple birthdays over the weekend. We wanted to make sure we didn't forget two of our very favorite astronauts, as we're going to be talking here on Stay Star Curious with us today. A little bit about the Uranus in the sky, but more importantly, a new uncrewed lander on the moon, a couple that have failed. We're going to kind of look at how it's about a 50-50 chance that you're going to make it to the moon, even a quarter way through the 21st century. So just had a recent success. We'll tell you all about that. Hang loose here and stay curious with me. Happy birthday, of course, to Buzz Aldrin. Turned 94 years old on Saturday, January 20th. He was born in Montclair, New Jersey, to a mother whose maiden name was Moon. How about that? We call this the visor shot. That is Buzz in the spacesuit taken by Neil Armstrong, of course, on July 20th, 1969. It was actually the morning of July 21st when they climbed back into the spacecraft. That is Neil in the visor with the lunar module, LM5. Marty Winkle, my co-producer, calls it. That's the tail number of it. Hey, Marty, how are you? Good to see you today. And we're looking forward to a good week of interviews this week. So, since I mentioned that, we will have Gary Allgaier on Tuesday to talk about the Apollo 1 fire from a structural engineer that he is. Terry White's going to be on Wednesday. Then we're coming back with Gary Allgaier to talk about the Columbia mishaps as a structural engineer that he sees it. And Friday, Mr. Mike Leinbach, who launched Columbia and over 30 other shuttles, will be doing a little question and answer with us on Friday. So we're going to get that all worked up and put up on Facebook here. But we wanted to happy birthday to Buzz, 94 years old. How about that? Actually born in, like I said, Montclair, New Jersey. Dr. Rendezvous, because of his MIT degree in Rendezvous. Buzz is not the oldest of the astronauts. In fact, Jim Lovell is at 95 years old. So we hope Buzz many more years. Also born on January 20th was this happy, smiling guy, Jerry Ross, 7 times rocketed into space. Boiler up to this Purdue knot. Graduate of the University of Purdue. He was born in Crown Point, Indiana on January 20th, 1948. He's been to space 7 times, performed 10 spacewalks, and he tells you privately at the luncheons and so forth he goes to, yep, he had an 11th on his Department of Defense mission, STS-27, but he can't talk about it and it's not official. So happy birthday to you, Jerry. He turned 76 years old Sunday. So just a spring chicken compared to 94-year-old Buzz Aldrin there. Well, also some news that y'all may have heard that the Mars helicopter stopped communicating during its flight. Its 72nd flight took off, everything fine, and they didn't hear from it again. So finally they realized that it landed, and it did communicate with the NASA ground via ground control via the Deep Space Network, which is where space missions talked to scientists. Everything seemed fine during the probe's 70-second hop on the red surface. Went up to 40 feet. And though communications had a glitch drop out, it landed safely, and they've reestablished communications with it. 72 flights this little Mars helicopter has done in an atmosphere that is thinner than at the top of Mount Everest, 7 miles high above the Earth. Quite a breakthrough. They were going to do 5 experimental flights. So ingenuity has far exceeded its expectations. Those of you that don't know how it got there there under the belly of Perseverance. It's been on Mars for almost 2 years now. That's a solar panel up at the top of it, and then those are 2 rotary blades that spin around at 1,000 revolutions a minute type of thing to give it the lift. So this has really proven a new technology that has planetary scientists scrambling to build more concepts of things that can fly on Mars. And I've seen you're going to need a lot of big wings, and but it is, the gravity's 1/3 of Earth, so less energy to move with the same weight around. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the planet Uranus, or Uranus. This is the god Uranus, and he was the god of the skies, and important. He was the god of astronomy, very important god in the Roman Greek mythology. And once again, the Greeks had the original mythology. Romans kind of stole it, where the Greek Ares, god of war, became Mars. The Greek Zeus, king of gods, became Jupiter, and so on. The Uranus is the Roman equivalent of it, and it is a very interesting cloud-shrouded planet. Also, Uranus in mythology was the father of all the Titans out there that are circling him. Well, just to kind of give you a vague idea of where Uranus is in the sky, Jupiter is almost directly overhead. It's the brightest star in the sky. It's the planet Jupiter. And where that is the Pleiades is to the east of it. And the Pleiades is the little cluster there at the top in this picture. And the red hash marks are where Uranus is. So it's between the Pleiades and Jupiter, if you drew a line into night sky, sort of to the upper right of Orion the Hunter. And there you see the V of Taurus the Bull with the bright star Aldebaran. Uranus was very little known about it. We knew it was shrouded in clouds. It only reaches a magnitude of just at the visibility of naked eye to humans, about 6 magnitude. It's 4 times the diameter of Earth, 15 times as massive. It's about 30,000 miles across, right? We're about 8. Its twin planet, Neptune, is almost 1 billion miles further away, but about the same size. And Uranus is yet colder at its temperatures of the clouds than Neptune. And that cold is 330 degrees below zero. All right, so 330 to 360 below zero is the temperatures at these cloud tops. Now you go inside these clouds, we're going to theorize, and they know from a couple observations, but not many, that there is a rocky core inside of this. A day on Uranus is 17 hours, meaning though it's bigger than the Earth by 4 times, there is a tremendous amount of energy swirling those clouds around over 1,000 miles an hour. A year is 84 years. So discovered by Sir William Herschel in the 1780s. It's only made a couple of trips around the sun since Earth has known about it. It's the 7th planet. It has an inner and outer ring system that we see there. Okay. And we didn't know about this ring system in detail. We could see sometimes when Uranus would go in front of a star, for some reason there'd be a breakup of light in that star, and they knew it was caused by these ringlets in there. But it's methane blue gives us the color there. But what is very unusual about it is instead of spinning like a top, like most planets do, some at an angle, of course, like the Earth, 24-degree angle. This rolls along the solar system like a bowling ball, if you will. So it's like it's not spinning, it is rolling around the solar system. So that is the only planet to do that. It's like it got knocked over 90 degrees by something in the early infancy. So we know mostly what we know by Voyager 2 spacecraft that was rocketed off a mighty Titan rocket in the 70s. 1776 it was launched, reached it about 9 years later after going past Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and then Neptune. These are the only close-up pictures that we've ever been able to see by a spacecraft. Only one time did we do this. Now, this is Uranus on the left and Neptune on the right, okay? Neptune's features are more visible than Uranus. Why we can't see more features on the cloud tops is it's like shrouded in a smog. It's like putting another layer around Neptune on the back here. But you see Neptune's got some cloud features that have been observed by the Hubble telescope now and other bigger telescopes. But Uranus looks pretty bland. And there is a picture of some of the selected moons of the solar system. You might know the 8 planets and Pluto, but do you know that there's over almost 300 moons in the solar system? 4 of them are almost the size of the planet Mercury. All right, there you see Callisto in the third column there. Earth has 1 moon. Mars has 2 moons. They barely show up there. Mercury and Venus don't have any moons. Jupiter has over 60 moons. The 4 largest rival the planet Mercury in size. 2 of them are the size of our Earth's moon. Saturn has about 70 moons. The large one, Titan, has oceans of methane on it that we've seen by spacecraft coming close to it. The Juno orbiter of Jupiter, the latest. Uranus has some rather small but interesting moons we're going to see here. Puck, Miranda, Ariel, Umbriel, Titania, Oberon. Any of you Shakespeare lovers out there? Does that ring a bell? That's right. Those are Shakespearean characters. And Neptune has a big moon, Titan, that is not shown to scale here, or Triton, I mean. Triton is almost as big as Titan there. And then there you got Karan is the moon of Pluto. Those are the major moons. Here's a Hubble telescope shot long after the Voyager 2 flew by, our only close-up views of it, but there you should see some moons. And these rings are not exactly like Saturn's rings. They're more larger particles, clumps in them. They're not as bright. When we look inside these gas planets that are covered in cloud tops of gases, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, we all believe they have a metallic core of compressed hydrogen, might be an exotic chemical that we cannot create on Earth. And when, like, going underneath the ocean depths, that pressure of the weight of the water above you would crush like a submarine if it wasn't built properly. Same principle when you go inside a planet's atmosphere. It gets heavier, and warmer inside. There's some theories that Saturn may have an ocean layer, or all of them have a layer of water circling them. Stranger things have happened. There again is Uranus or Uranus. And this is a view through the Webb telescope. You saw the Hubble telescope. This is an incredible image taken by the Webb. Again, Uranus is rolling on its side like a bowling ball going down the lane, not like a top spinning on its end. So we're seeing the rings like a bullseye. This is infrared radiation off those rings, shining brilliantly next to those 300 below zero cloud tops in the blue there. Here again, a look at some of the moons of Uranus. They're not very big. I've got a couple other close-up pictures of him here. Um, Here's a couple of the Uranian moons here. Let's see. Uh, you have aerials only 720 miles across, and it's got very few craters and other old features. So they think it must have been reshaped by geology. Down there at the bottom, that's aerial. Umbral, on the other hand, is also about the same size, and it to the left of it, but it's got more craters in a surface that was unchanged since it was formed 4.5 billion years ago. So you've got craters are an indication that the object that's cratered is not renewing its surface. Okay, that's why we don't see any craters on the Earth, because the Earth rejuvenates its surface through atmospheric erosion and volcanic activity, earthquakes, that sort of thing. Again, Titania shows no craters, which something has flowed out of the interior to cover it up. All right. So, but here's one of the most mysterious objects in the solar system. If you know a person named Miranda, this is Miranda, the moon of Uranus. It's only 300 miles across, okay, but it is jumbled up like a puzzle to where the structures at the bottom, at the top is like a giant mountain. It's like it was ripped apart and jumbled together again by gravity. And there's so many other close-up interesting photos taken by the Voyager spacecraft over 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago, 40-some years ago. The only close-up photos of Miranda that we have, and there's nothing in the works the next 20 years planned to go to the outer planets to investigate them. Okay, so communication, just showing you with Voyager, was quite a complex situation, as it is with interplanetary craft. The spacecraft itself is moving at 30,000 miles an hour as it's taking photos. Again, a Hubble telescope capturing the ropey rings of Uranus there with the some activity like maybe lightning going on is captured in the lower hemisphere. Here's an idea of the solar system, and you see the two little white dots. Those are the two Voyager 1 and 2 that have left the solar system, okay, as the bow shock of us going through our Milky Way galaxy creates this type of a shock wave, this artwork's trying to. Our solar system's right inside the blue with the white. The sun is the yellow dot there in the middle. Well, enough of Uranus there. Hope you get out and check Uranus out, and you can see it in binoculars with the help of a star map. It's worth seeing. And in a telescope, it looks like a tiny little disc, kind of greenish. It looks bluish green. I always enjoy looking at it, and I'll get out and look at it here as soon as we get some clear nights around here. It's warm down in Florida. We're not going to complain about that, but sure has been rainy. Well, let's talk about being an amateur astronomer. What phase is the moon at? If I say the moon is 12 days old, which is it closest to up here in the sky on this chart? Well, up there, it's just before full moon. So the third from the right, the gibbous phase, is going to look a little bit more of the moon than that tonight. 0 is new moon, and 14 is full moon, and it's a 28-day moon cycle. So 7-day-old moon's first quarter, 14's full moon, 21-day-old moon is last quarter. If I say the moon's 22 days old, it's not going to rise till after midnight, so amateur astronomers are happy about that. They can see some of those faint, fuzzy galaxies, nebula, and star clusters in their telescopes without the moonshine washing it out. So to talk like an astronomer, today is a 12-day-old moon, and you're going to go out and see it tonight. And I want you to think about some of the successes and some of the recent failures that have happened on the moon. We're familiar with looking at the moon in the upper left-hand corner. It is locked tightly, keeping that face of the moon towards us. But on the right side is the back side of the moon. not the dark side of the moon, the back side of the moon. Take a look at the top two photos, and you see the little oval on the right there. Okay, that's Mare Crisium, Sea of Crisis, the dark sea oval in the upper right. Well, that's Mare Crisium in the upper left there on the top right-hand photo. All right, so, and then the left bottom corresponds to, that is the entire backside of the moon that we don't see. Well, of course, you know that's the absence of the dark areas or the lunar maria or seas. They were once bubbling lava over 3 billion years ago, about the viscosity of a 10-weight motor oil. Maybe not like molasses, not very thick because of the low gravity. But that's the backside of the moon that, of course, only 24 human beings have seen. We hope the Artemis 2 astronauts can get up there and wave at it from 6,000 miles away. But very foreign to anybody to look at that bottom left-hand picture and say that's our Earth's moon. The two pictures on the right are turned at 90 degrees. And you see on the bottom right is a circular crater on the edge there that has concentric rings. And if we were looking at that eons of human being time, they might think that was an eyeball looking back at you there. Well, in the news today over the weekend is that Japan landed a spacecraft uncrewed on the moon to become the 5th successful country to do that, although a power issue cut short the robotics' projected lifetime on the lunar surface. So a partial success. Now, JAXA, the Japanese aerospace agency, is going to have a press conference on the 25th. That'd be Thursday, and I'll try to be watching that or watch the replay, and hopefully they'll reveal some photos. They said it operated for a few hours successfully. There was an issue with the solar panels generating electricity. Maybe it tipped over. This is the profile. Not much information on the internet. This is called SLIM, Smart Lander for Investigating Moon. SLIM. That's a good acronym. Touchdown near a small crater about in the center of the moon on Friday at 10:20 a.m. our time, Friday morning. And they joined Russia, the United States, China, and India as the only nations to have reached the surface of the moon and sent data back. So it is silent now. They're going to hold a press conference. What's actually going to be at 12 a.m. on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. And they'll hope to reveal photographs. As they said, it was a high-precision landing with an accuracy of 100 meters or better, a football field, so to speak. Just before it landed, there is an artist rendering or a fancy photograph that they staged of this lander. It landed on its edge after coming down. In his profile, it said that there were 5 crushable 3D printed aluminum lattice landing legs helped the lander absorb the impact of touchdown. This mission is aimed at demonstrating the precise landing technology to set it down with 100 meters of its target, and it was landing on a sloped rim crater. All right, just about 3 football fields, 300 meters wide, called Shiloh. And as it landed, it successfully deployed 2 small rovers designed to hop to record temperatures and radiation levels in areas around the lander. And these little 2 landers were made by the company that makes transformers. The Japanese toy company Tomy, T-O-M-Y. And that's was programmed to change its shape from a sphere to expose its cameras and utilize its 2 hemispheres as wheels. Wow. Can't wait to see those things on pictures of it there. So here was a mission that came out of the blue that I hadn't been up on, a Japanese lander. This was their third attempt. Okay, in November 22, JAXA launched a CubeSat with NASA's Artemis 1 mission that was aimed at performing a hard landing on the moon, and they lost communications with that. If the solar panels aren't generating power and they are on the top, maybe it landed on its side, is some of the conjecture. But it disconnected its battery to prevent an over discharge. And then they're going to manage a lot of data. Technical and image data acquired during the landing, descent, and on the lunar surface were successfully transmitted. But we're dying to see it, JAXA. I looked all over the place and couldn't find anything on it. So it could get some sunlight and power up. If it's reawakened, they're going to do some extra objectives there. So this was launched in September 6th. So here it is, the middle of January. It took a looping 110-day voyage to the moon, and it entered lunar orbit on Christmas Day. So this is the 5th country to make a successful soft landing on the moon. The main, we had a failure recently of Peregrine, a private company wanting to land on the moon. And we're going to talk about a couple of successes here. But we have Intuitive Machines is going to launch their rideshare lunar lander on February 13th, it looks like. So named IM-1, it's scheduled to launch probably there's a couple of days that they could get it up starting February 13th on the lunar cycle. This is a successful lander on the moon. This is India joined the club, was the 4th back in August. The India lander called Vikram is the robot the robotic rover we're going to see here in a minute. It's called Vikram in Chandrayaan-3. Okay. This was their second after 2 failed attempts on the moon. Here is the rover, and you get a good size of it there. That's about 10 feet tall. And it worked through exactly as it was planned as it landed on the South Pole in August. Chandrayaan-3. Big success. The rover did its thing. And no, there's the Slim lander there from JAXA. All right, their logo. And so you wonder how many things have landed on the moon. Well, the Apollo 6 moon landing are yellow. The American Surveyor uncrewed are in blue. The green are Russia. Okay. Soviet Union. Haven't put on these new countries on there. So you got a couple dozen successful soft landings, but nothing since the 1980s. And here is a lander that also failed. Okay, partial failure for JAXA, though they made it. This is the Russian Luna 25, first probe they launched to the moon in 48 years, and they were embarrassed that it ended up like this. Splat. Big splat. That's the crater it caused, according to Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, when it was launched, and a big disappointment, as it was right there in August with it was the day before the Chandrayaan there. So things, what they hit the moon, you can notice where they come from. See the rays, some dark rays there, so it came from that arrow direction there. And here's the Astrobotics. Unfortunately, their Peregrine moon mission did not make it close to the moon. It made it over 200,000 miles away from Earth, and then did an abrupt U-turn and crashed into the moon Friday morning. Crashed into the Earth, burning up in the Earth on Friday morning. So there's 2 successes, 2 failures, all right? The Peregrine was doomed because of a plumbing problem, basically. A propulsion problem, a valve stuck open, compromised it, and You can see the buckled outside of the lander there. There is the South Pacific near Tonga, is the body on the left there where the Peregrine lander met its demise with 20 ride shares on it. But it did power up, was a successful test of all of the systems on board, just the propulsion system failed. As simple things like the propulsion system failed there. The JAXA wanted to work through a moon cycle of 14 days. It's compromised because its power supply, something has an anomaly in it from its solar panels. So 2 for 2 just in the last 6 months on the moon. And when the Lunar 25 crashed, that abort was caused by the thrusters. Let me go back to that. They figured out that the problem here was that its altitude accelerator devices used to detect motion wasn't turned on, and that created a longer 127-second engine firing for the landing instead of 84. So almost 50% longer, and doomed it out of control to splat there. Peregrine lander propulsion system line blew up on the lander. And it crashed. But who has a lot of successes? What is this that I put up there that kind of looks pretty funky like that? Well, glad you asked. There, Dave Stange, Steve Jokums, Doug Forrest, Mark Usiak, Tom Usiak, Cliff Watson, Robert Law, Carlton Bailey, Bill Whiting, and Gary Gerald. Thank you all for watching. What is the symbol, gentlemen, that I have up there? Well, this is the official Chinese Lunar Exploration Program symbol, okay? A lunar crescent with 2 footprints at its center, all right? Human footprints, all right? The symbol represents the Chinese character for the moon. And China is now in an undeclared moon race with the United States and anyone else because they're going, all right? We say we're going, but they have got the money, the hardware, the metals being bent, and the plans are being made. And in the last 4 years, China is 2, 4, 6, so they're 7 for 7 on their lunar missions here. Taken from Wikipedia here. Their successes include, incredibly, a landing in December 2020 where they returned 4 ounces of lunar soil to Earth near the feature Mons Rumker, a very young area. This is a very complicated thing they did where they took an experimental China did, called Chang'e, are these vehicles called Chang'e, and they used 3 vehicles. They had an orbiter, they had a lander, then the lander had another spacecraft on it that launched off the lander and rendezvoused with the orbiter. Then the orbiter had a 5th vehicle on it that was sent to the Earth with the reentry capsule and all that. So all of this worked in December of 2020. Then they brought in October of 2014. They tested the return capsule and lunar autonomous techniques that I just described was a success. And then they had other successes in 2019, 2013, and 2009, their first Chang'e lunar orbiter. They landed on the backside of the moon in 2019, 5 years ago in January. Soft landed on the far side of the moon with a rover called U2, YUTU, and this was a big rage in Japan. Here's their lander, Chang'e. This is not an artist rendering or anything. This is the real thing on the moon. Look at the pads here at my hand, right there, the dirt that's been kicked up there, moon dirt, as it dug in on the landing there. So that was a very successful mission. And here's the rover called U2, and it had its own YouTube site and TV program where children all over China were fascinated with this. And it's been very successful, has now run out of all of its power. I do believe, couldn't find whether it was still, well, it's ongoing. All of their missions are ongoing, it says. So they're still collecting data from them, whether it's moving or not. China, of course, we are not allowed to exchange technologies, America and China, because of the global political climate. So, and maybe we should, to find out what's going on with these vehicles on the moon. So, well, I know you'll be looking up at the moon, Marty, this weekend. 2 days there'll be full moon, and there'll be really a bright moon in our sky all week, if you're lucky to see the moon and not clouds. But many of you in the northern climates will see this around the moon, a ring around the moon, because of the inversion of the warm air hitting the Arctic cold all the time. It creates this halo around the moon that is always the same size, 22.5 degrees on one side, 22.5 degrees on the other side, made by ice crystals in the sky. And a lot of ancient lore is made. Of course, you see the palm trees. They can get cold enough in the sky, of course, to have ring around the moon down here. One of the ancient fables, if you will, was you count the number of stars in between the ring of the moon there, and that's how many days till it'll rain or snow, or till you kill a buck or a deer or whatever. So all kinds of things always associated with what we see in the sky. So hope you get out and look at the moon a little differently, as we're looking at some of the spacecraft that made it and some that didn't on the moon, as mankind continues to push outwards, and our closest neighbor, 240,000 miles away, is our obvious first target and training ground to learn how to do these things. So tomorrow we'll be back with a great program on Apollo 1, like you've never heard the disaster talked about, the fire, by Gary Allgaier, who was a Apollo structural engineer. So straight from a person that lived it, Gary Allgaier. Will talk about Apollo 1 tomorrow on Stay Curious. Until then, I'm Marquette saying I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.